Well, I'm sure that as you look at this fantastic place, you'll be wondering where it is. And in actual fact, we're very near to the town of Betsy Coed, which you'll find on the A5, right on the edge of the Snowdonia National Park. And this is the River Cledder. Now, downstream, it's joined by the very famous River Conway. And the Gwydir Hotel control around 14 miles of fishing on these two rivers. Now, we stumbled upon this place almost by accident when we were surfing on the internet, and boy are we glad that we did, because this is fishing paradise. We're here, of course, to fish for salmon and sea trout, and most of the fishing is going to be at night, after dark, for the sea trout. But before it gets dark, I'm going to try for salmon in this pool, and Mick's going to try a little bit further downriver for the brown trout. It's such a beautiful place that I know we're in a fishing race, but catching a fish here will be a bonus. It's absolutely stunning here.
If you've watched our shows before, you'll know I'm not a great fly fisherman. I'm not that experienced at it, but in this challenge, we've got to do all sorts of fishing wherever we find ourselves, and I'm always prepared to have a go. I'm pretty happy with the rod and the reel. It's a pretty standard 8-weight trout rod with a 8-weight floating line, and I've got a 7-pound leader, which I've tapered down to a 4-pound point, and I've put on a little pheasant tail nymph for goldhead, something recommended by one of the local anglers. But anyway, as I cast into this pool now, I'm going to really enjoy just feeding that fly down the current, just round into the slack water at the edge, and might pick up a brown trout, but always in my mind I'm thinking that fly is going past a salmon, maybe waiting for some water so it can go upriver to spawn. Might be going past sea trout that are waiting for darkness to fall before they start feeding. So it is quite exciting. There's a lot going on down there, and if I can just get a bite, might catch something. I'm starting with a short cast, and I'm going to progressively work my way across, but there's no point covering the water on the far bank till I've covered the water close to me. I'm just casting on the edge of the streamy water where it drops down over the boulders into the deep hole. I would expect the fish to be waiting just as it deepens off, where the food is coming down and turning over and collecting.
Well, I've given this pool a pretty good lash on the fly now for the salmon. There's not much current to move the fly around, so it's not a great pool for the fly, but it was worth a go, and we're getting ready now for the magic hour. Now, this is a special time on the Conway. Most of the sea trout rivers I've ever fished, all of the fishing takes place well into the hours of darkness. But here on the Conway, they reckon that dusk is an excellent time for sea trout. So we're going to go with the local advice and start fishing before I would normally fish. And I think what I'll do now is wind in, get the sea trout gear ready, and let's just hope when we get fishing that there's a few fish running these pools. Well, now we're coming into the magic hour, and this is a very special time to be on the river. I absolutely adore sea trout fishing. There's something very special about being out in the water alone at night in the darkness, and then somewhere out in the blackness of the pool, you hear a big fish jump. It sends shockwaves through your heart. And of course, when you least expect it, you get that tightening or big pull on the line. And that in itself is absolutely magic. Hook a big sea trout at night and you're in for a huge fight. And I think it's probably the pinnacle of British fishing. If you're going to fish for sea trout, there are a few things you need to understand. And the principal one is the fact that the fish is not here in the river to feed, Basically, it begins life in the river and it lives its life as a normal sea trout would, feeding on small waterborne insects until after a few years it approaches maturity, and at that stage then it goes out to sea. And it's at sea that it does its feeding. Out there it'll feed on shrimps, prawns, crabs, anchovies, and it will grow large. Now sometimes the sea trout will come back into fresh water to spawn after just 1 year at sea, but on other occasions it might wait several years before it comes back. And unlike salmon, sea trout can return to spawn time and time again, and that's when you get the really big fish, the fish that have been back into the river on several occasions. What we're trying to do with our flies is to promote a reaction, to invoke a primitive feeding instinct, a memory perhaps of feeding in the river or at sea that causes the sea trout to literally grab at the fly out of instinct. And when it does, it's absolutely magic. Sometimes when you're sea trout fishing, you haven't got much room to back cast behind you, and on a smaller river, you can improvise beyond the sort of basic overhead cast by either roll casting the flies out like this or making a what's called a single spey cast. Just behind me here, I've got some trees, so fishing the head of the pool here where the water runs in nicely is very, very difficult, but it's a good place to find sea trout. So by using the single-handed spey cast, I can get the line out right across the pool and carry on fishing an area that most people would bypass. So it's worth spending time practicing these casts to be able to get to those awkward spots that most people don't even bother fishing. Well, the situation is, thanks Mick, that fished pretty hard really. I fished 3 pools in total, didn't see any sea trout, didn't get any bites. But you know, that's sea trout fishing. You could come on another night when there's plenty of fish in the river and you get bites all night long, and it's a beautiful place to fish. Well worth a gamble. As far as the scores on the doors are concerned, well, we started off with 105 pounds in our keep net. We've used 26 miles getting here to Betsy Coed. So basically we've got 79 pounds left, which it was worth a gamble, you know. We had to come along the A5. We haven't really gone off route. It was just worth a go. And I think the only thing we've lost is a little bit of time in the morning, because we're going to have to sleep now when we could have been fishing early doors, but it was worth a go. It was a nice place.